Good morning and welcome back to the channel. So if you never watch another one of my videos, watch this video, okay? Watch it all the way through because I'm going to be laying out the bear market case and the bull market case. And I'm going to be presenting it as if I was arguing this case in court and I was presenting evidence for both sides. And so that's what I'm going to try to do here. So please watch this entire video all the way through, okay? So this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. So do your own research and make your own decisions. The first scenario, Bitcoin will pump to a certain amount, let's say 100K, we could say 90, we could say 120, whatever it may be. Have that blow off top, and then it's going to crash by 80% down to 20 to 30K, and we will be in a bear market for the next 3 years like previous cycles. This is a commonly held belief right now, and I would say that the majority of the crypto space accepts this as the truth that is going to come. So the second position, this is the mainstreaming of crypto, Bitcoin, CBDCs worldwide. And this is the position that I am taking, but I'm going to make my case for both of them. And I'm going to present the amount of available evidence for both of them. Bitcoin will continue to go up over 100K. All mainstream media and all mainstream YouTube will tell their viewers to sell everything or 60 to 90% of everything and wait for the bear market to buy back. But we will never go back down to 30K. So both positions, and I'm going to make the case for each of them, and I'll let you decide on what you feel like is most likely given the available information. So I should say that I would prefer the first scenario. So, if let's say the first scenario plays out, there's no reason to come back to me like, oh, I told you this and that and the other, because I would prefer the first scenario. Okay. I understand where this is going long term. And so if it's longer term or if it's going to be mainstreamed later than what I believe it's going to be, that's good because I have more time to accumulate before it goes up and doesn't come back down to these levels ever again. So I would prefer the first scenario. That gives me 3 years to accumulate at cheap prices. I would never work again after whenever that took off. Like that would be it. I would retire. So I would prefer the first scenario. I really need to drive that point home. I am making the case for the second scenario because I think that's most likely once you really dig into it and look at it as if you were the people in charge and decide, because in my opinion, pumps, dumps, and when the market is down, when the market is up, that is a highly controlled thing. And that does not happen by accident. And there are pumps that are planned, dumps that are planned, and whether or not the market is going to be up or down, that is something that is, in my opinion, probably predetermined by the people in charge. Okay, if you don't share that same view, you might come to different conclusions. But I say all that to say I would prefer the first scenario happen, but I think the second scenario is the most likely, and I will explain why I believe that. So let's lay out the case for both. Here is the evidence to support the first case. Now, there may be more evidence, but for the most part, these are the main positions that people will take when making the case for the first scenario. Previous cycles have played out this way. We have a blow off top, drops by 80%, and then a 3 or 4 year bear market. This is to assume, though, that this is predetermined, that no amount of buying and selling is going to change this. And for Bitcoin is different from the proof of stake alts in that it is built where its price is derived more from real supply and demand and true price discovery. Now you have the leverage trading market, which can manipulate the price. That being said, it's more true price discovery with Bitcoin and supply and demand, as opposed to some of the proof of stake alts, which derive their price from their liquidity pools. Not all, but some of them do. A lot of them do, okay? So to say that we're going into a 3 or 4 year bear market and that we're gonna drop by 80%, that is to say that that is a predetermined thing. And then it doesn't matter how much buying takes place. It doesn't matter if this was mainstream tomorrow. So if you're to assume the first position is going to happen, is there any scenario at all, like maybe every single bank buying as much as they possibly can? Is that going to change it? Like what's the threshold for when there's enough buying to the point to where that would no longer be the case, or do you just believe it's a predetermined thing no matter what? Something to think about. The second position is one that I feel like is the most legitimate, and that is a possible collapse of the US economy and the US dollar. I think that that is a legitimate position to take, but I will make my case for why I don't think that is likely to do what a lot of people believe it's going to do to crypto. Mainstream thought says this will happen. So these are the three positions that I know of. Now, I'm sure somebody who was making the case for why this was going to happen would be able to articulate a better position. But for the most part, this is the body of evidence that they are using to push this off as this is unquestionable. This is going to happen. Just prepare for it. Okay. Now I'm going to make the case for the other position, and I'll let you decide. Please watch this entire video. This is the case for never seeing 30K Bitcoin again and no return to a 3 or 4 year bear market. Keep in mind, this has all happened within the last 6 months. Okay, so many things are going on across the world right now, regardless of where you are. You're being hit with things left and right that I think sometimes it's been hard to step back. And it's been like this for me. I might just be projecting myself, my own stuff on other people, but it's been hard to step back and really look at everything from a macro level and to really understand what's happened in the last 6 months as it relates to this. None of this happened in previous cycles. None of it. The largest retailer and the largest online retailer are both getting in. Okay, they haven't started accepting cryptocurrency yet. That being said, they've laid out the fact that they're going to, and they're hiring a team to put together to, roll out a strategy moving forward. Despite what Walmart came out and said yesterday, that's really irrelevant to the big picture. They are both hiring cryptocurrency leads and teams to roll out their own cryptocurrency strategy. So the largest retailer and the largest online retailer are both getting in. All of the major Wall Street banks and big banks are in. And this is all recent, okay? The largest asset managers are in. BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard, they are in. Fidelity is extremely, extremely bullish on Bitcoin. Now, the number 4 right here, State Street Global, I don't know if you've ever seen anything on them. I haven't seen any announcements on them on crypto YouTube, so I looked them up. They're in too. This is a quote from their CEO from 2 months ago. We will see digital assets as one of the most significant forces impacting our industry over the next 5 years, creating a dedicated cryptocurrency division. So you have all the big banks are in, and they're recommending it to their wealth clients. And there is a component to that I'm going to go over, which is very significant, and it should not be just dismissed. So all the big banks are in, and then the largest asset managers are in. Now, once you get down here, you start seeing JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs again. A lot of the big banks also have their own wealth division, so they also double as asset managers themselves. But all the big financial institutions are in, period. And this is a recent thing. This is not something that's always been happening. This was not happening in 2017, 2018. This is recent. The big money is in. So the reason that I went over that is because they're recommending this to their wealth clients right now at these prices. That's very important to keep in mind. Why is that relevant? If you understand what a fiduciary is, you understand the relevance behind that. If you don't, I'm going to go over it really quick because it is very significant. A fiduciary is a person or organization that acts on behalf of another person or persons, putting their client's interests ahead of their own, with a duty to preserve good faith and trust. Being a fiduciary thus requires both legally and ethically to act in the other's best interest. A fiduciary is legally bound to put their client's best interest ahead of their own. So I put up here, big investors are buying and recommending it to their clients at 45K. Now, if they were to recommend this to all their wealth clients at 45K, and then we go down to 15K for 3 years, they could be sued into oblivion. Bailouts wouldn't matter, because the amount of lawsuits that would pile up on them would cause them to absolutely crater, because they have now put their clients' assets and wealth at risk by putting them into a risky, unproven asset that was predetermined to lose 80% of its value for the next 3 years. So they would be sued into oblivion. And do you think that institutions like this are out swing trading with Bitcoin? I'm not saying that they're never going to sell anything ever, but do you think that they're out swing trading and that they're just planning on buying and then selling now in a few months? Or, how do you think that's going to play out? So they have legal responsibilities, and they've never done this before, right? They never did this when it was down under 10K, when it was at 15K, when it was at 20K. They are recommending it to their clients at 45K, and financial institutions are buying. This particular organization just put out a report talking about the future of cryptocurrency. Now, the Stellar CEO moderated this discussion, okay? There was a report and then there was a video. Brad Garlinghouse was also a part of this discussion, the CEO of Ripple, the CEO of Stellar and the CEO of Ripple, both on this call hosted by this organization. Okay, now on the report that came out, I'm going to read to you what it says. This is from them directly. This is not from me. Meanwhile, these markets have grown exponentially, and during global adoption, with global adoption increasing by more than 2,300% since 2019 and 881% in the last year alone. The next sentence is very important. During this time, Bitcoin, for example, has evolved from a small niche internet community like 2017, 2018, and before, into a well-known asset for investors, private firms, and even nation states. And it goes over all the adoption across every single country. So that's just what people are saying, right? That's just people coming out and making statements and rolling out their strategy. It may or may not have anything to do on the price, depending on whether or not they're actually buying and so on and so. So I understand that position. So let's look at the actual data here. Exchange balances are at a 3-year low. Another 21,000 Bitcoin were pulled off exchanges last week. Meanwhile, Whales holdings have increased by roughly 44,000 Bitcoin in the last week. So this shows red is the number of whales, and you can see that staying constant. But look at their holdings in green, literally going just straight up, and recently straight up. So this is back from July. So they've been buying over the last 2 months. Very important to keep that in mind. Contrary to common opinion, the latest price pullback was not from whale selling. They've been in a significant buying region. So keep this in mind also. This is probably the most important graph in my opinion. So supply held by long-term holders continues to break all-time highs. So we are literally at all-time highs with supply held by long-term holders. So the common theme is that you sell into the bear market, right? When it's going up, you're taking profits and you're selling into the bull market, is what I meant to say, right? So the bull market, as we're going up, you're selling, you're taking profits, and that's common. That's just common belief as far as that's how people are doing everything. But in this graph, this shows that people are buying right now. Big hands are buying aggressively right now, not selling. So despite the prices that we're at, they are buying aggressively. This is the balance on exchanges. So I showed the tweet, but this is what it looks like on a graph. We are making new lows. So you can go all the way back. This is back into probably 2019. This is the balances on exchanges. And it has just absolutely cratered over the last year or 2 years, to the point to where we're just gradually going down, despite the fact that the price has been going up. Very important to understand that. Just think about this. Whales are buying right now. That's a fact, all right? retail is planning their exit strategy and telling people that now is not a good time to get in. This is a reality that is happening right now. Whales are buying, retail is saying, don't get in, wait for the bear market. Very important to keep that in mind. Michael Saylor just picked up another 5,000 Bitcoin. Michael Saylor also has fiduciary responsibilities. He just bought another 5,000 Bitcoin. He owns 114,000 at an average of 27,700. I'm going to go over the numbers here because I think it's significant for a reason that I will mention. So the current price is roughly 44,000. It could be 46, 45, whatever. Let's just be conservative and say 44,000. His average is 27.7. That means he's made 16,300 per Bitcoin. That means that he has made $1.85 billion in the last year alone buying Bitcoin. Why does this matter? Because this is going to put pressure on a lot of CEOs and CFOs and asset managers when they see what he has done here and that he has successfully turned this with a $1.8 billion profit at a time where other assets are depreciating or going up or not even keeping track with inflation. So this is going to put pressure on other corporations and on other asset managers. And he also has fiduciary responsibilities. If he is buying at 48,000, why do normal people think that they have more access to information than the richest, most powerful people in the world? That's what I don't understand. Why do normal everyday people who, are worth nothing? I don't mean that in like I mean that as just like your overall net worth. Why do they think that they understand more about what's going to happen than some of the richest people in the world? It doesn't make any sense to me, right? So he has fiduciary responsibilities as well. This is my prediction based on all the information. We will continue to go up, Bitcoin specifically, but the market follows Bitcoin. But I am specifically talking about Bitcoin. And we will have pullbacks along the way to liquidate overly leveraged positions. So going up, and then we all of a sudden have a good 10% correction, whatever it may be, consolidate for a little while, and then just continue to go up. And we might go sideways for a period of time, but the trajectory is going to be up overall. There will be periods of sideways action. The media and mainstream YouTube will convince people to get out and to take their profit before the bear market. We're already seeing a massive push for people to sell their crypto, take your profit where everything's about to crash and go into the gutter. So just take your profit, take your ball and go home, come back in 3 years when everything is cheaper. But I don't think that we're ever going to go back to 30K. And the reason is to assume that this cycle is going to be exactly like last cycles, is to assume that all of these individuals getting in, and there are many more things in this, right? This was just a high level overview. That's to assume that all of this, and you're basically saying that the CEO from the fourth largest asset manager doesn't know what he's talking about. We will see digital assets as one of the most significant forces impacting our industry over the next 5 years. And you're saying that Fidelity doesn't know what they're talking about, the third largest asset manager, because they're giving 5-year price predictions for Bitcoin that are outrageous, and 15-year predictions that are just off the charts. So you are betting against the richest, most powerful people in the world. Now, a person could say, well, they've always been bearish on, I would ask you to really use your critical thinking skills in that regard. And understand that if they are recommending this to their clients at 45K and they're coming out and promoting this, and this drops down to 15K for the next 3 to 4 years, they're going to be sued into oblivion. We have much bigger issues to worry about because all of these financial institutions will be sued into the dirt. Whether or not the lawsuits go through or they win is a completely different story. That being said, they will be sued into oblivion, but they are doing it anyway, and they are recommending buying at 45K, but yet retail is planning their exit strategy. Really think about that. So sell and go where? Where are you going to go? You're going to go back into the US dollar and the US economy? This is a current live situation that could happen at any point. Now, it could also not happen at any point, and this could just all be for show, and they're planning on suspending the debt ceiling and continuing to print over the next 2 years and continuing to pump the stock market, and that could be very well what happens. I think that everybody, understands that all gloves are off and that anything is possible moving forward. But I listed out some of the different areas where people could go with their money: Bitcoin, real estate, bonds, gold and silver, stocks. So the whole thing about a huge economic collapse and the US collapsing, the dollar collapsing, I would want my money in the new system when the collapse happened. When the old system is collapsing, I would want my money in the new system. That's not to say that there's not going to be downward price action with crypto as well in a situation like that. I think that that's the most legitimate position to take if you are looking at the first scenario, right? I think this is more legitimate than the first reason, saying previous cycles have worked this way. Again, if you really look at the logic behind that, you are saying that there's nothing that could happen that would change this. It doesn't matter how many billions of dollars, trillions of dollars is being bought, or is, how much money is chasing Bitcoin at a particular point in time. It doesn't matter how low the exchange supply is. It doesn't matter. It's a predetermined thing that's going to happen. That's essentially what you're saying. So you don't believe in genuine supply and demand and price discovery, and on certain alts and on certain cryptos, that's actually a legitimate position to take. But with Bitcoin, there is more legitimate price discovery. So Bitcoin, real estate, bonds, gold, silver, and stocks. Here are the different areas that you could go. And I would want my money in the new system when the old system collapses. That's just my own personal opinion. None of this is financial advice. So in closing, everyone is in their own financial position with their own degree of conviction with cryptocurrency. Some people are like in the middle, some people are completely bought in. And so everybody's position is different. So if I had any recommendations, and I don't give financial advice, but I would just say, look at your own situation, play the numbers out on your own, get a spreadsheet, get a notebook, write down, okay, how high do I think it's going to go? When is my exit point? How far is it going to need to drop for me to be able to come out in the green on that? That's a very important part. Because if the idea is to accumulate more, you need to look at your exit strategy and say, okay, how far does it need to drop for me to be able to accumulate more than what I had when I sold? Because that's the goal for a lot of people. That's what they're planning on doing, okay? So that's just something to keep in mind, keep an eye on, although I'm not giving financial advice. I've done videos on this in the past where I lay out the numbers and whether or not it makes sense. So everyone should run the numbers on their own for their own investments to see what makes sense for them. For me, I'm taking 10%, but everybody's in a different situation. I'm fortunate enough to have a good job and to still have steady income. But if that were to change next week, would my position change on how much profit I take? Very possible. So everybody's in their own situation. And that's really my main message here, is that these large channels pushing out cookie cutter, strategies are doing their viewers a disservice, because everybody is in their own scenario and has their own situation and should make that decision for themselves based on playing out the scenario and really looking at what makes sense. If I hold during the bull run and Bitcoin drops all the way, let's say it goes from 100K all the way back to 15K, and I only sell 10%, and everyone makes out great, but all of you watching sell the top and it crashes back to 15K and you're able to buy more. In that scenario, I would be genuinely happy for everybody. It's not like I would be bitter and sour about it. I wouldn't care, because it would go right back to, I've invested roughly 19,000. So it would go right back to about 19,000 and probably down to 13,000, 12 to 13,000. And I would be just back where I started, accumulating and buying and buying and buying. After I went ahead and put that 10% profit that I took, which is only going to be in certain cryptocurrencies that I'm not particularly bullish on, not bullish, but I'm lukewarm on. I'm invested in 20 different cryptocurrencies. So the 5 that I'm not that big on, those are the ones that I'm going to be, taking. But this is not financial advice. But I'd be genuinely happy for every single person if that was the way that it played out and you time the top and you time the bottom. My concern is selling at 100K and then it going to 150K and then me selling more to take more profit before it dumps down to 15K or 20K and then it going to 200K. And when it corrects, it only corrects to 100, consolidates, goes back up. That's my concern. Okay. So, because at that point, retail is beat. If retail got out, retail is beat because their purchasing power at that point is shot. And they already have that average buy-in price right now. Okay. I would be genuinely happy, right? So, and I would just buy the dip. So that's my mindset. I would reset my mind like it was the beginning of summer and I was just accumulating. Didn't care when things went up. I was just accumulating. And that would just be my mindset. I would reset my mind to it being 3 years ago and or not 3 years ago, three or 4 months ago. And I'm just accumulating and I would be doing that for the following 3 years. And that would be my plan. So that's the case for both. But I want you to honestly think about something. Let's say that we were to have a blow off top and go back down to 15K. People would be able to take profits and then they would be able to accumulate cheap Bitcoin for 2 to 3 years. That would be the most phenomenal scenario of all time. And I really want you to understand something. I would prefer that happen. If you were to lay it out on the table for me and say, here's both scenarios, which one do you prefer? Hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, I would prefer the first scenario. So again, there's no reason to come back at me and be like, oh, well, you said blah, 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 blah. But this is my opinion based on the evidence that I have laid out for you. Okay. And I would prefer the first scenario happen. So I'm not going to be like all upset if it happens. What I'm saying is that I believe based on the information that the second scenario is more likely. Is that to say that we're not going to have a blow off top and a big correction? I'm sure that we're going to, because there's so much leverage in the market that there's no way to avoid having those big corrections. What I'm saying is that I don't ever see us going back into a 3 to 4 year bear cycle or bear market. And I don't see us going down to 30K. Based on the available information, at the end of the day, much of this, if not all of this, macro level price action is built off of supply and demand. Supply is at all-time lows. All right. And the demand, which I just went over from all the major institutions, is at all-time highs because they've never been in before until now. So please make your own decision. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if there's a legitimate, and this, okay, so let me address the straw man real quick. Saying something like, oh, well, you haven't been through a cycle before, or I have been through a cycle and you haven't. So that's a straw man argument. So if you have a legitimate argument to make, a legitimate case to make for this scenario playing out, then please feel free. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it. I really would, because I would love to look at this in a different way other than the way that I do. But if I'm looking at this like I'm the people in charge, I'm the people that are manipulating the market, why in the world would I gift wrap cheap Bitcoin to a bunch of people for 3 years after I let the cat out of the bag and told them that this is the future, this is going to happen? All the large financial institutions are saying what's going to happen over the next 5 to 15 years. Now that the cat is out of the bag, why in the world would I dump it down that far and make it that cheap so they could accumulate? Unless you just think that they're trying to do all normal people a solid and protect our buying power and give us the greatest, best performing asset of all time at a super cheap price for several years so we can just accumulate as much as we want. Does that make any sense to anybody? The only way that that would make sense is if the whole market, everything just collapsed and somehow all the money went nowhere and it just all went down. And my point that I'm trying to make is that money is going to start going in certain places and leaving other places. And if I was a betting man, which in this scenario I am, I would bet on money going into the future, to the best performing asset of all time, to the new system as the old system collapses. I would assume money is going to be going from the old system to the new system. It's not to say that we're not going to have corrections, sideways action, big price dumps, so on and so forth. What I'm saying is that I do not believe we are going back into a 3 to 4 year bear market. And I do not think that we are ever going to see 15 to 20K Bitcoin again. And I feel pretty certain saying that we're never going to see 30K Bitcoin again, based on the available information that I've been over in this video. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you everyone who has liked, shared, and subscribed. I wanted to try to present this from a different perspective and show both scenarios and look at which one really makes the most sense once you step back and you analyze all the other macro level factors. So that's all I have for this video. Thank you, everyone. Take care. I will see you in the next video.